Hello, Painting 1 students. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update here in terms of some of the steps that you need to be going through in order to fix your pastel for preparation coming up for your next painting, which will be a monochromatic abstract painting. So, as you know, this pastel design was taken from packaging design. And one of the things that you want to keep in mind here as you create your design is that it is in fact to be derived from the package itself. These are not arbitrary shapes that you just invent cutting them out of any old piece of cardboard. So you can see that when I cut out my shapes, I followed along with the shapes that were actually on the front of my package, which, as you can see here, was Raisin Bran. And the reason we're doing that is because the makers of these packages have gone to a great deal of time, trouble, and expense to create award-winning designs. So when we did our pointillist painting, we worked very, very directly in terms of recreating the divisionist work. Here we're going to use some of the design elements that have been created by others, but we are going to rearrange them so that you will have your own brand new design. And that design will be doubled up in size for your 16 by 20 canvas. Now, in order to keep these shapes proportional, you want to remember that your pastel design is 8 inches by 10 inches. And you want to make sure that you measure that very carefully and make sure that the corners in your design are in fact right angles. Because if your measurements are off, then your final design is not going to look like the design that you have created. So what you can see here is that I have begun tracing some of my shapes like this, and I have some other shapes which I'll be including. These shapes can also be repeated, so you can see right here I've already begun to repeat some of my shapes. This is a larger shape, obviously, and so it's going to cover up a lot more of your design area. So as you have cut out your shapes already, what you want to do then is trace them onto your sketchbook drawing paper. And you want to have, to begin with, maybe 4 to 6 shapes that you're using. You don't necessarily have to have a big complex number of shapes, but you don't want to have too few. So about half a dozen shapes usually works out pretty well for most students. And there's a certain kind of arbitrary quality to how you're going to be arranging these shapes on your design. There's no necessarily preconceived set of instructions that you have to follow here, but we are going to be making sure that all of the shapes around the edges of the canvas are actual enclosed forms or enclosed shapes. So this is not a composition that will really have a background, so to speak. So I'm going to do one more of these. I don't want to make the whole thing too complicated. So I think I'm going to put one down here, and part of it will be hanging off the end, which is fine. So you want to also vary the size of your shapes, some of them smaller, some of them bigger. And as you can see, the color that I've chosen to work with here is this turquoise blue. You want to keep your pastels clean, so I wipe them off with paper towel pretty frequently. And I also have here some charcoal pencils. Pastel pencils will work the same way to keep my edges nice and crisp. So here you can see I have a black shape and a turquoise shape, and I'm going to go over some of these edges. You want to keep the edges as crisp and clean as you can. So you'll have a good idea of what your design is actually going to look like. And here is where it is crossing with the turquoise. So I'm going to put up another large turquoise area right here. And for this kind of a drawing, which is actually a painting, pastels really are paintings, you can work very effectively by holding the pastel on its side. So we'll bring this around here like this. Now here there's no intersection because this shape was resting next to the other one. But this shape does continue up here. And so pretty soon we're going to see some of the places where it intersects with other forms. So, as you can see, the shape that we have here is this one. This shape. All right? And now we are we're going to have an intersection, I think, of white. So I'm going to clean the white pastel. And my white shape is going to be this boat-like form here. So I'm going to go right on top of the turquoise momentarily, but I want to get the clean white down first. So I'm going to put all the white inside the boat-like shape. And now I'm going to go over the place where it intersects with the sunshine bowl. So the white boat is going across the sunshine bowl. And what's going to happen there is that we're going to get a turquoise tint, which is going to be much lighter than the original turquoise. And since here you have also a white pastel pencil in your kit, you can go along the edges. Try to keep the edges as crisp as you can, because we want to have nice clean edges in your painting. This will be a hard edge painting. And I'm going to now go over the turquoise edge, try to get it nice clean edge, and make this darker, as much so as the pastel will allow. So now we see a nice contrast between the turquoise as it stands and the pastel tint. So I want to have some contrast between the white boat and the area next to it. So I'm going to create a small area of black, and you can do this with your pastel pencil, or you can do it by sharpening the black pastel. So now I'm starting to get some contrast.